States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you and good evening. The only thing I got, Monica, will you read our vacancies, please?
The city has the following openings on various boards and commissions. The Heritage Preservation Commission, 1 position. Cable TV Commission, 2. Recreational Waterways, 1. Citizens Environmental Quality Committee, 3. Human Rights Commission, 1. And the Planning Commission, 1. If anyone is interested in applying for these positions, you can contact my office for an application. The application is also on the city's website.
Okay, thank you, Monica. That's all I got, Judy.
Yes, I have some comments that these were left behind by the Public Works Director to bring the council and the public up to date on some activities taking place in the near future. The County Road 15 and 17 roundabout should be going out for bids very soon with the construction to start this spring. So we all remember that project. Turning lanes on Highway 43 are part of a state process, and those should be done sometime starting this spring and summer also. Lake Park, there's some earthwork being done, and we've had some calls asking what was being done down in Lake Park. First of all, the planting site for the Japanese cherry trees has been tilled up. It is being planted with grass, hoping to get some of that grass growing prior to the ceremony on June 10th, coming up this year. The large area for disc golf, which is what most people see along Sarnia, has been dangerously rough over the last couple of years, so we're tilling it up to get rid of some of that settlement issues. It will be planted with grass. A significant amount of the black dirt that was removed is now being hauled next to the softball diamonds, stockpiled there for their softball diamond field replacement project coming up this fall. The ash tree removal project has started removing some of the unaffected ash trees that are poor quality. Several of those trees have been taken down and were once shown in the slide presentation before council. Staff is working hard to communicate with the public to avoid surprises when the trees come down. Trees that are being removed are consistent with the discussions that was held here at the City Council and the ash tree management plan. There will be some application of the insecticide to some of the ash trees starting as early as May of 2012. In addition, the DNR tree planting grant, we have been notified that we will receive a portion of our $25,000 grant to replace some of those trees, and we'll find out within the next week officially the exact amount of that grant program. And that's all.
Okay, thank you, Judy. Monica, call roll, please.
Mayor Miller.
Here.
Councilman Thurley. Here. Craig.
Here.
Alexander. Here. Salyards. Here. Worzikowski.
Here.
White. Here. Under the public hearings this evening, the first hearing is item 2.1, the interim ordinance for frac sand operations and transportation facilities.
Okay, before I open it up, I would ask that you try to hold your comments to 2 to 3 minutes. Be respectful of everybody, even though you may not agree with what they're saying. And I know that there are signs here. Just keep the signs down so they don't interfere with anyone sitting behind you. So with that, we do have a list here. So I'll open the public hearing, and first I call on Judy to make some comments first. Judy?
Yes, thank you, Mayor and Council. I have been asked to answer the question, why exempt the Port Authority commercial dock from the moratorium? And I'd like to give some background on that situation. First of all, the Port Authority commercial dock is an existing operation and therefore would not be covered under that moratorium. We have been planning for over 5 years for the construction of that commercial dock facility. And in 2011, the port began the construction of a $1.3 million relocated commercial dock facility, which will be placed in use in 2012 for the 2012 shipping season, which actually started this past weekend. The 2011 shipping season for the Mississippi River in Winona consisted of over 1.9 million tons of product shipped in and out of Winona by barge. This was approximately 47,000 tons more than 2010, but as much as 850,000 tons less than the 1999 shipping season. In 1999, we had over 2.8 million tons of product go in and out of our commercial harbor. So we do have a capacity there to handle additional products going in and out. Significant shipping of commodities has occurred in the commercial harbor and will continue to occur. Commodity transport, whether it's salt, coal, agricultural products such as corn and soybeans, fertilizer, sand, or any other products, is consistent with the intent of the commercial harbor and the intermodal connection to the Mississippi River and that water transportation source. Riverview Drive and the New Pelzer Street were designed to carry truck traffic, allowing for commodities to reach the harbor by truck and being shipped out by barge. The current operator of the commercial dock is preparing for operations for 2012. All kinds of commodities are being considered to be shipped in and out of Winona by barge, and specifically over the recently completed dock. The dock operator must find customers for using the river as a transportation route. One of the options for the 2012 shipping season is frac sand to be transported by barge, similar to shipments that were made in 2010 and 2011, thereby making this an existing operation. According to the commercial dock operator, the maximum capacity, and I want to impress people, that's the maximum capacity, assuming full operation from day one when the dock opens, for loading barges with frac sand is estimated to be 150 barges for the shipping season, which could be as many as 8,500 trucks over the 8-month shipping season. Generally, we see as many as 70,000 to 90,000 trucks in that commercial harbor shipping product in and out on a yearly basis. Commercial dock is currently designed to be more environmentally efficient by eliminating the need to transfer product for storage from the dock area to the storage area by truck. The 2012 operation will allow for the unloading and storage on the same property and for the use of conveyors versus truck movements. So we will be cutting down on truck movements within the commercial harbor itself. This dock will be for all commodities which may be transported by water. The port would like to use the previous site for receiving dredged sand from the Army Corps of Engineers. If you go down to the commercial harbor now and see that large sand pile, that sand pile is currently sand that was dredged by the U.S. Corps of Engineers, their maintenance program on the Mississippi River. Winona is a place for them to dispose of that sand, and we've put that sand to beneficial use. That dredge material in the past was used for the construction of Pelzer Street. It was used as a sand base for Pelzer Street to be constructed and other street projects. Building projects such as improvements at Fastenal and St. Mary's College have used that dredged sand, and the sand has been used by the city and county to sand and salt the streets over the winters. The amount of each and every commodity shipped over the commercial dock every year changes, and our operators encouraged to find new commodities to increase this intermodal activity. There's also been some issues related to who the Port Authority of Winona is, and I'd like to give a little bit of background on that. The Port Authority of Winona was established in 1968 when the city of Winona requested that the state of Minnesota establish the Port Authority. The general duties under state statutes of a Port Authority are to promote the general welfare of the Port District, to increase the volume of the port's commerce, to promote efficient, safe, and economic handling of commerce, to provide or promote docks, railroads, and terminal facilities open to all on a reasonable and equal basis for handling, storage, care, and shipment of freight and passengers to, from, and through the port. And those come from state statutes. The Winona Port Authority currently consists of 7 members, 5 citizen members, and 2 city council members who were appointed by the mayor and approved by the city council. The city manager for the city of Winona has always been the executive secretary for the Port Authority, and that is a requirement under state statutes. The Port Authority reimburses the city of Winona for some of its staff and administrative costs, including a portion of the city manager's salary and benefits, the community development office staff who work in the area of economic development, including the community development director, the program development director, and the secretary, all of whom are city employees but are paid in part by the Port Authority reimbursing the city. As the interim city manager, I am currently acting as the executive secretary of the port.
Okay, thank you, Judy. Now I'll ask if anyone wishes to speak. Oh, wait, we got a list. We'll go through the list first, and then if anyone else wants to speak, they'd be welcome to it. Like I said before, try to keep your comments to 2 to 3 minutes. Try not to repeat what others have said, and try to be respectful of what everybody says, whether you agree with them or not. So with that, we'll start with
Number 1 is Jim Gurley.
Jim Gurley. State your address, please.
Hi, Jim Gurley, 22505 Betty Jane Drive, Winona. Thank you for allowing us to speak tonight, and I wanted to thank all of you on the City Council for the progress that you've made in the last week. We appreciate it. It's a good start, the moratorium and the permitting process, but it is just a start. Regarding the moratorium and the city's commercial harbor, the Port Authority's commercial harbor that Ms. Bodway was just talking about, the point that I would like to make is that the problem with exempting the port from a moratorium is that it doesn't affect the real problem among the residents of the city. The problem among the residents, a big problem, is all the huge semi-heavy trucks going through the city, going around the YMCA, endangering kids and families, spilling sand, driving aggressively, and all that this port, the addition of barges going out from the port full of frac sand, is simply going to raise the bar for the number of trucks that are going to come in. I understand it's one barge a day. That's 58 truck worth per barge. That's 348 extra trucks a week. The citizens who see the headlines that you have banned frac sand or that there's a moratorium are not prepared for the fact that you're going to be escalating the number of trucks. So I want each of you to understand that you are going on record by exempting the port as increasing the number of trucks in the neighborhoods of Winonans. If you want to do that, that's great, but Winonans will know that that's what you're doing. We don't want you to exempt mining from the moratorium. We think that the study committee that was broached by Councilman Craig was an excellent idea. We would go further and say that to limit it to air quality study is not enough. There's no reason it should be limited. Any kind of study during the moratorium should study all the consequences of frac sand in Winona. The meetings that such a committee would hold should be open to the public. They should be completely transparent. And as Councilman Craig suggested, residents as well as industry and staff should be members of such a committee. You might consider a generic EIS as an alternative to a planning department sponsored committee study. That would be where the city of Winona would gather together with other entities of government, other cities, other counties within this region that are all affected by frac sand. And you could pool your resources, pool your information. You could hire expertise that would do a comprehensive job and look at the problems and the solutions for us as an area, because the environment does not respect political boundaries. Finally, I would say that in the conditions, I would encourage you to apply all the conditions to all current facilities, the mine and all frac sand operations to whatever extent is possible. I think the city attorney has referred to this in some way as maybe being possible in some cases to apply new conditions retroactively. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Who's number next?
Next is Bonnie Wachinski.
One 1759 West 5th Street, apartment 205. I have had, like many of the people in Winona, did not know what was coming when the sand trucks arrived. Last year, I was driving past the Frack Mountain. I didn't know what it was, but I had my window down. It was a beautiful day, such as today. The wind was quite strong, and suddenly I felt congestion in the lungs, and I rolled up the window quickly, and I thought, what is going on? I thought, is this coal dust piled up here or something? Later on, I thought, well, it must have been the frac sand, because what else? I didn't know what else it could have been. But people say, well, what's a little dust? And even if the pile may be gone, my car has, I noticed a few weeks back, the car and windshield, you couldn't see through the windshield because I had parked near Pelzer Street. And at $8 a pop, I don't think I'll ever be able to have a clean car again. I don't know if anyone else can afford that either. I mean, every day you can't be washing your car. But worse than that, what's a little dust? I mean, the air quality, I'm told that Minnesota has no standard for monitoring the invisible particulate matter that results from the sand, movement of the sand, whether it's on a conveyor or a truck or whatever. The dust, the fine dust, is what is harmful to the lungs. And I think I may be quite concerned more than the average person because I've been a nursing student and my mother had passed away from scar tissue in the lungs, and she died at quite a young age. I think part of the problem was not frac sand, but something similar. It was she had been sewing draperies as a job, and was using the fiberglass fabric, and so there are many ways, and you also can be reminded of the people up in northern Wisconsin, Duluth area, how their lungs, how they were harmed by the industry there. So I think that we do need regulations for particulate matter in the air. Even though it's invisible, even though it dirties our car, that's minor when you think of what's happening to people unknowingly, unwittingly, losing years from their lives because of such contamination, which they cannot see. Also, I think we are being complicit in feeding into this industry, which is non-regulated. The frac fuel mining industry has overturned regulations in the federal government so that they are not required by the Clean Air Act. They have exempted themselves from the Clean Water Act, and so that a couple of weeks ago, I saw this little article in the local paper. The EPA is heightened security over Pennsylvania gas drilling. Well, the people were having their water tested by the EPA because of the frac fuel mining there. But this article has neglected to say that whatever EPA finds in their water, they will not be prosecuted, or because the industry has already exempted itself from the Clean Water Act. I think that our moratorium should extend beyond 1 year. It should extend until that industry is compliant with the Clean Water Act, which may take more than a year.
Okay, ma'am, could you kind of sum it up, please?
Okay, I guess that's what I'd like to say about the water in the air. The water in the air is far more important than the gas we put in our cars.
Okay, thank you.
Next is Joe Morris. Joe Morris?
Joe Morris?
Thank you for this opportunity to speak. Joe Morris, 23375 Buffalo Ridge Road. I want to make 3 points. Number one, well, first of all, I want to appreciate you all for passing the moratorium and getting started. And I think it was a good step. But I think it wasn't enough. I'm going to mention a couple of things related to what a previous speaker said. It does need to include frac sand mining. I read one media report that was quoted Mr. Espinoza saying that it does include mining, but as my recollection 2 weeks ago, it did not. but it does need to include mining within the city. We have bluffs, the bluffs facing the city are all, most of them are private, or a bunch of it is privately owned at the base, which is where people could go in and mine without being affected by the Bluff Land Protection Ordinance, which protects steep slopes and ridge lines. And it's private property. People, it seems like, could mine on their private property into the bluffs, even the ones facing the river. And not to mention the bluffs in the valleys, the bluffs, the backside of the bluffs facing the city. They've all got high quality sand in them. Okay, so you really need to include mining as part of this moratorium. The second point is, I also agree that we should not exclude the commercial harbor, the Winona's commercial harbor. Last time we were here 2 weeks ago, it was mentioned that the city gets 20, I believe it's 28 cents a ton for everything shipped out. It's a cash cow. It's a lot of money the city's going to get. But the question is, do we want to have that money, or do we want to have the trucks? Because we just heard that there's potentially 8,500 trucks in 8 months. That's over 1,000 trucks a month that would come here with frac sand. And we also heard that, or 85,000, I'm sorry. But it seems like that that's way more trucks than were hauling sand last year. So it seems like it's an expansion. So I think you could include it. And the third point I would make is, again, I mentioned this a couple weeks ago. How did this happen? I think residents of Winona have an expectation, a reasonable expectation, to understand how this could have happened when city council members claimed they didn't know this was going to happen, when planning commission members claimed they did not know this was going to happen. Who knew? When did they know it? And how did this happen? Because if people don't understand that, it could happen again, the same kind of problem. And so I think it's incumbent on the council to write a report about how this all happened and put it out so people feel like they know what's going on. I mean, either people knew and they didn't tell, people didn't know, and maybe, I don't know, maybe everybody got snookered by a big Texan from Tatum. Who knows? I mean, is that what happened? If that's what happened, well, okay, let's just talk about that's what happened, so we don't have the same mistake again. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. Okay,
Next is Jane Cowgill.
Jane Cowgill, 317 Walnut Street in Winona. I also would like to thank everybody for passing the moratorium, and also second what everyone has been saying about including the port in that. I'm still worried about the bridge, which I keep talking about, despite what was in the paper from MnDOT. I think that if a bridge is so compromised that you have to close it down and to repair it, that the additional trucks coming over are just going to make matters really dangerous. And I'm quite worried about that. Just a little aside, I wanted to say that I was told the other day that in both the legislature, the state legislature in Minnesota and in Wisconsin, that there are bills that are trying to take away local control over these decisions. And so I think the more that we can really, really take control and show that we can do a good job on it, the better it's going to be, so that we don't lose that kind of control over our own environment. Thank you.
thank you.
Next is Marie Koveski.
Hi, I'm Marie Kavesi. I live at 133 Whispering Lane in Winona. I was here last week for the 92nd meeting where you've passed the first reading of the moratorium. So I'm back again to thank you for your foresight and to hopefully begin to work with you on the issues of health, safety, and welfare of the citizens of Winona. To recap, we've all been on a steep learning curve since approximately last July and August, and I agree with the previous speaker. We do need to get to the bottom of how this descended upon us. There are lots of questions. But last July and August, I first noticed the blasting that was shaking our homes and the trucks that descended on us across our fragile bridge. We've all been concerned and working on road safety aspects because of the volume of trucks associated with this business. It is not business as usual when you have 32 trucks an hour on the bridge. Those are loaded, and that's just the sand truck business. It's not business as usual when you have 15, 14 trucks going up and down Seminary Road, coming out on Highway 14 at that so-called safe access for the highway where we had our accident. That is not business as usual, and we need to find out more about that. In many ways, the real work is just begun. We need to find out what's happening to our groundwater and to our air. That's the basics for healthy living. I would encourage you to do an environmental review, including all the current operations, including the currently operating mine that's operating in town. We want our city to be safe, and we expect clean air and clean water, no business allowed to dewater or remove water from our aquifers. We expect safe roads. So I encourage you to continue to work on these issues and to work in an open system. I would like to see committees and working together on all of these issues. I would encourage us all to keep learning and to get to the bottom of these issues. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next is Chris Nisbet.
I'm Chris Nisbet, and I'm one of the operators at the port at 978 Riverview Drive. And just wanted to reiterate what Judy said. We have loaded sandbarges the last couple of years, so we are in existing operation. And I'd also like to thank the Post for writing the article that the frac sand trucks were one of the industries that they did not find any violations with. I think they checked over 100 trucks. There was not one overweight truck. I also talked with the Minnesota DOT, and they said that they also feel the same way, that the frac sand industry is getting a bad rap for what's going on in Winona, and they are going to be on continuing basis still checking the trucks, but they don't feel that it's in any way harming the bridge. So just wanted to reiterate them statements. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Next is Reggie McLeod.
Hello, I live at 267 East Sanborn Street, and I also wanted to thank you for passing this moratorium. I just like to look at the bridge. There's a lot of good reasons for concern, even the broader environmental reasons of the damage caused by frac drilling. But if you look at the bridge, according to the Army Corps of Engineers, it takes about 870 truckloads to fill one 15-barge tow, and one legally loaded truck, and this isn't according to the Army Corps of Engineers, this is according to the Center for Transportation Studies at the University of Minnesota. One fully loaded truck causes the equivalent wear on the roads of 9,600 cars. So that means 104 trucks, and there have been days and 104 trucks, more than that, have come into this town full of frac sand. 104 trucks is equivalent road damage of 1 million cars then. So I think you really have to look at the scale of this. The other thing that I'm concerned about is the Minnesota Department of Transportation. I spoke with folks at MDOT in Rochester in September, and I spoke with the lieutenant in charge of the State Highway Patrol in this area, and they both told me about how well this weight in motion system and the camera were working on the bridge. Although I had heard rumors, actually, from within this building that those systems were not working. Well, now we find out those systems weren't working. And they set up those systems to monitor and to make sure overweight trucks weren't coming over the bridge. And now we pretty much found out that they weren't doing that until October. So they lied to me on both matters, or else they were very confused. And I would really encourage you to get some very specific information from them as to what studies they have applied to this bridge to see that it's gonna last until we can replace it with a new one. Because what is their predictions of the number of trucks and the number of vehicles going over that bridge in the next 2 years, 4 years? Did they take this into consideration when they did that study? If they didn't, we might be in big trouble. And all the extra money that we might make shipping sand from the port and from jobs, how quickly would that be lost if they had to shut the bridge down for a month or two? What kind of damage would that do to us as a community and to our business community in Winona? Virtually all of those frac sand trucks that are going to be going to the port and the other facilities in town are coming from Wisconsin over the bridge. And I bike and I travel a lot along by the port, and before that, it seems like traditionally, because it's mostly been serving grain shipping, most of the trucks were coming from Minnesota off of Highway 61 and coming into the port, although a lot of them were coming over the bridge a couple months a year, not 12 months a year. So I think you really need to get a study in writing from MDOT with some numbers, some traffic counts, and then you can monitor that. And if there's more traffic coming over there than they had projected, you can take that into consideration, because I don't see that they've been doing a really good job on that so far, and I don't think that they've been really honest with us so far. And if you had it in writing, I think it would be much better protection for the community. I biked across that bridge on Saturday, and the sidewalk they added on that cantilever has big cracks in it. It's wood, but it's separating already, and you can see through it. Some of the pipes on that cyclone fence that they put up, instead of having a real railing, some of those are almost rusted through in a couple of places, and I just did a quick, I wasn't over there inspecting it, but just going down there, I noticed that. So I would encourage you to get some real numbers from the MDOT, and to walk across that bridge and look at that fence and look at the pipes, and it's more the horizontal ones than the vertical ones, and the vertical ones I assume are more important. But take a first-hand look at that and talk to some people. Talk to Jai Kelsey at MDOT and say, can we see the study that you used to say that this bridge is going to be fine for X number of years? So thank you again.
Thank you.
Next is Julie Ponzinski. And could you spell your last name for me?
Prondzinski.
Thank you.
I live at 515 West Bellevue Street. And I guess I just kind of want to bring some awareness to the cycling culture here in Winona and Winona County, and in Wisconsin also. I'm a road cyclist, and of course there are other types of cyclists, mountain bikers, people who ride around the city. And I can tell you that sandy roads, many big trucks, and little cyclists don't mix very well. Got your big truck, narrow roads, little cyclist. It's very frightening. Sandy roads make for very slick surfaces, which makes braking and maneuvering very difficult, particularly dangerous on downhills. Over the last couple of years, the city of Winona has sponsored the Trinona, and it's been voted the best triathlon in the state of Minnesota. 2 years ago, it had 500 participants. Last year, it had 800, and I've been participating in it for the last 2 years. Most people come here because they love the beauty. They love the uphills and downhills for the cycling portion of it. Cyclists, the course actually goes through the city of Winona and through portions of the county of Winona, including parts of, we come down Gilmore Valley Hill and onto Highway 14. So the cyclists ride that route, and we also train in the city, and we also and in the county county roads. So we also need to work with other counties in both Minnesota and Wisconsin, because that's where we train. Most roads are 2 lanes, often without or narrow shoulders, which are often sandy. Okay, and some of this right now, especially on the River Road, is coming off of the sand trucks. Many cyclists cross over the bridge to Wisconsin and back. Some cyclists come from Wisconsin over here and train and go back. And since I work out at the Y and since I use the bridge to cross over into Wisconsin on my bike, I've noticed an increase in these big trucks. And I can tell you, it's very frightening to have to, ride side by side with them going from here to Wisconsin. I guess I thank you for, voting for a moratorium, but I guess I want you to become aware of this cycling culture. We do it because it's exhilarating. We do it because it's good for our health, and we do it because it's good for the environment. Cycling is a clean sport. I don't see that frac sand mining is a very clean operation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next is Kelly Kirk.
Kelly Kirk, 33222 Hubert Road, Saratoga Township. I'm not going to tell you anything that you don't already know. I can tell you, as truck traffic is right now, it doesn't bother me. But that doesn't mean that I don't have a tipping point. I come into town 2 to 4 times a week, and there are 3 adults in my household. For us, I just tabulated real quickly what we do when we come into town and where we spend our money. First couple places you won't be impressed about. First is the Y, which is my favorite, and once in a while Carlos will play me in racquetball. Then it would be the public library, then it would be the post office, and then it would be the bank. And I like that because it's on a nice little half-mile strip. After that, it's Midtown, it's Laderberg's, it's the Blue Heron, it's the Co-op. It's McDonald's sometimes, But anyway, you get the drift, okay? And where our tipping point comes in is when it gets to the point that there's going to be too much traffic here, I won't be spending our household money downtown. And that's the only point I have to make. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
And next is James Johnson.
I'm James Johnson, 802 West Broadway here in Winona. I wanted to talk a little bit about Bizant's Stone Quarry, since I know that you guys have a lot of things to study during the course of the moratorium, but I would hope that Bizant's would be at the top of the list. The city continues to say that Bizant's is grandfathered in and does not require any new permits to operate, but city staff has not gone into much detail as to how the city has come to that conclusion. Bizant's is a non-conforming land use and is required to apply for operating permits if it expands. And according to staff, expansion means addition of new equipment, increasing the surface area of the operation, or expansion onto a new site. It seems pretty obvious, at least from my point of view, that Bizant's has broken at least 2 of these 3 criteria. And citizens still haven't been really given a full explanation as to why their expansion has not triggered a CUP. In July of last year, Bizant's applied to stockpile limestone and dolomite on a property adjacent to their mine, so expanding their site. They needed to remove this really thick layer of stone to access the frac sand underneath, which is 120 to 150 feet underground. And now Bizant's fills about 60 plus semis full of frac sand on their operating days and transports sand on Highway 14 to Winona. The intersection they turn on is completely inadequate for that volume of semis, and we've already seen one near fatal traffic accident because of the sand trucks. The road they turn off of, Seminary Road, is not big enough for 2 semis going both ways, so they have to radio to each other so they don't cross at the same time. And then when they cross across 3 lanes of traffic, and it's if you go up there, you can see it's not adequate. So the city is saying that Byzance is grandfathered in, even though they're under new management, even though they've expanded their operating site, even though they're blasting and mining a new aggregate in quantities they've never managed before, and even though they're transporting this new aggregate on roads that aren't equipped for this volume of semis. I hope that in the coming weeks we could get a more thorough response from this council and from your city attorney, especially since Byzance has already started blasting again, and in the springtime they're really going to up their blasting. Yeah, I also wanted to make a quick comment on the port. I really appreciated the introduction that was given. I think that cleared up a lot of things. I still don't fully understand that. It seems like multiple people have said that even if the port wasn't exempt, it's an existing operation, everything would, I feel like the answer has been, if it wasn't exempt, it would be the same. But that's not really an answer for why it is exempt if it would be the same. Does that make sense? Okay. Bye.
Thank you. Okay, is there anyone else that wishes to speak that hasn't signed up or hasn't spoken before?
There is a sign-in sheet on the podium. If you could please sign your name and address before you begin comments.
Where's the sign-up?
It should be right there. Or someone doesn't want anyone else to speak.
I'm Debbie Niebuhr. I live at 571 East Howard. I live about half a block from the train that goes between 10th, and Mark Street. And many nights when I'm out walking, I see, one night I counted 103 train cars that went by through my residential neighborhood full of frac sand that was uncovered. And I've seen it many nights. So not only are the trucks coming by, but also the trains are going through residential neighborhoods full of frac sand that's uncovered. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, anyone else that hasn't spoken or wishes to speak?
Good evening. My name is Marilyn Bureau, and I live at 1890 West 4th Street here in Winona. My husband and I are here tonight to ask the council to please thoroughly take another look at the drying plant for sand that wants to come in our neighborhood. This plant really belongs outside the city limits. There are small children that live on 4th Street, as well as McConnell Drive, and there are also elderly and retired people. Jefferson School is within a mile of this area, as well as the alternative school. During the operation of this plant, who's going to be responsible for monitoring the air? What kind of collection equipment will be used? What will be the frequency of the air sampling? Who will determine the form in which the sand arrives at this site and the process of keeping it wet at all times? What chemicals will be used in drying the sand? And how much noise will there be when the dryers are running? If the plant is shut down for maintenance, will there be an accelerated production? Will there be an ordinance for the hours of operation? What management statement will residents have for our safeguards? Holding ponds, what's the treatments for those? What kind of chemicals are going to be used in there? Is there a city ordinance prohibiting standing water? How many trucks per day for the sand drying? How many trucks per day for the intermodal transportation? Are we looking at, say, 200 a day? What about the traffic turning from 5th Street onto McConnell? Are they going to be operating during the school pickup times on our street? With the rail line being put in, who is going to monitor the coupling noises, the clanging, the banging? The trains are already running 24/7 past. The new tracks are within 200 feet of our property lines, so these noises will be even closer yet. These are only a few issues. The magnitude of this processing plant will be enormous and really belongs outside the city limits. Please help us to protect our neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, anyone else that hasn't spoken before?
I will, oh my gosh. My name is Dan Wilson. I live at 832 West Broadway. I would just like to say that I'm very pleased that you have all decided on a one-year moratorium. I'm very proud of people that stand on both sides of the issue, pro-frac sand or anti-frac sand. I believe that we all have very good and honest motivations for doing so. Just a couple quick comments. It is my belief that Winona is in a position to either be one of the counties that produces studies that will change how the rest of the similar counties deal with frac sand. So I think studies that deal with air pollution and whether or not silica sand blown off a cart may actually cause silicosis is something that could be very important and impact what's done in Wisconsin and Minnesota. So maybe a third-party research group to analyze that. The studies that I've seen have come from other sand industries, so they don't really seem to be too honest. One concern that I have that I know many other citizens in Winona have is that regardless of all these concerns about moderation and regulation of the frac sand industry, I'm very concerned of where the sand is actually going. People that are working for the sand industry are able to talk about how hydraulic fracturing is part of the solution and why this is such a good thing to bring to our area or how we're a part of it. It's very clear that hydraulic fracturing is poisoning millions of people in the United States, is causing greenhouse gases, is worsening global warming. It is not part of the solution. And since we're selling our resources to them, we are responsible for this process. And it is my hope that instead of Winona being complicit and choosing to go down a path that will lead to worse consequences in the next couple of generations, that Winona would choose to investigate other forms of energy or other viable ways of local economic solutions. My second point along with that is that to address the concern of jobs that a lot of people working for the industry have brought up is I live in a homeless shelter in Winona, one of the only emergency shelters in Winona. So I deeply understand the need for more jobs in Winona County, but I also understand the need to have those jobs be meaningful and to not degrade the county, to not destroy the roads or destroy the bluffs and things like that, and jobs that provide meaning and purpose to people, and jobs that won't dry up in 50 years and leave their children with no occupations. So I believe that the city council is responsible for how this industry conducts itself, where the industry is going, and our participation in it. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, anyone else? Okay.
Good evening. My name is Ron Stevens. I live at 317 Kansas Street here in Winona. And I just wanted to say I just recently returned from North Dakota, where my family has a farm near the Bakken Formation, but not part of it, so we're not beneficiaries of it. And I guess what I want to emphasize is we need to move quickly to get our arms around this situation, because I've witnessed over the last couple of years in North Dakota what happens when cities and indeed most of the state is caught unprepared for what has happened. And while it's created a few millionaires and a lot of jobs, well-paying jobs, it's also created a lot of headaches for locals, people who can't afford to live there anymore. So it's a big issue, and I guess I just wanted to add some emphasis here or some urgency to this situation. And I think it's probably bigger than what the city can handle. And so we need to collaborate and be integrated with other entities that can help address these concerns. So thank you for your attention.
Okay, thank you. Okay, anyone else that hasn't spoke?
Can't just sit and listen, I'm sorry. Allison Denio, 358 West 4th Street. I have to say this forum is really frustrating. We have 2 minutes to make a point of, getting across the things that we're concerned about, why we're concerned about it. Most of the people in this room have done a great amount of research. We have our 2 minutes to say something, and then we're silenced. I want to ask questions. I want to have it interact, a very clear form of communication here. And so what I asked for last time I stood here was for some committees to be formed that included us. I haven't heard anything about that. It just kind of died. And I want to really urge you to please address this, because I would like to sit down with Carlos, with you, with several of us, bring in the experts from the EPCA, or MPCA, all of these different organizations that we've been talking to for months and months now. Please, please address this. I'll be silenced back there, but I'm willing to answer any questions you have.
Okay, thank you. Okay, anyone else that wishes to speak that hasn't spoke before? Anyone else wishing to speak to the interim ordinance for frac sand operation and transportation facilities?
My name is Roger Flinsky. I live at 37 North Street. Big deal with water. If you make them ponds and they're not completely sealed out, or the water does not seep into the groundwater, you would destroy about 5 wells in my area. There's a well on hole number 7, which is the city. You would destroy the water, or you want to call it the swamp, wetlands, and that would drain into the Mississippi. Furthermore, the trucks. Nobody does nothing about them. The J-braking, all times of the day. I've already asked 5 people to put the J-braking signs up. Nothing's been done. One person was asked even before Pelger Street was redone. It's like falling on deaf ears.
Okay, anyone else wishing to speak to the interim ordinance for frac sand operation and transportation facilities? Anyone else wishing to speak to the ordinance for frac sand operations and transportation facilities? Anyone else wishing to speak to the interim ordinance for frac sand operations and transportation facilities? Okay, I'll close the public hearing. And I know Judy's been taking notes. It's our goal, as far as I'm concerned, to continue to listen. I mean, we've heard tonight, we'll continue to listen. Staff will be meeting. I think they met today. They'll be meeting over the next couple of weeks, and we'll come up with a process where we can involve and how we should involve everybody involved in this operation, in this situation. We will continue to listen. We will continue to look at ways that we can address what we're hearing. I know we're in contact with the MPCA. We're trying to get in contact with the Minnesota Health Department and the DNR, as well as the Wisconsin PCA, as well as their DNR. They're ahead of us in all that. They have done studies. They have come up with things. We are going to be looking at ways that we can come up with, I know it was mentioned, and I think they're doing this in Eau Claire or in Chippewa Falls now, where they do have air monitoring devices in place, and you can go on the internet and you can see what's happening. So that's our goal, and like I said, we're going to continue to work with everybody to come up with the best way to handle this. So, Jerry?
Judy, if you could kind of explain this a little bit on the ordinance number 3894 that we did with the emergency meeting on March 5th. Section 1, purpose and intent. Purpose and intent of this ordinance is to prohibit new or expanded frac sand mining, storage, washing, drying, and processing operations, et cetera, et cetera. The potential of any more frac sand mining within the city of Winona is addressed right here, I believe, isn't it?
I believe that's what that says, and maybe the city attorney would be.
Mr. City Attorney?
Yes.
Okay, just wanted clarification. So those folks who had the right idea, but it should affect any mining, especially in the foothills, this moratorium does address that. Okay, another thing while we're at it, we already had the meeting on, we did not include the port, and I understand partially why. It's an existing business. What I don't feel comfortable with is the expansion. So what I would like administration to do, I don't believe tonight, because we've already taken the action on March 5th. Tonight is the public hearing. We can still go back, I do believe, and what I would like from administration is how do we address the port? Now, again, I know there's some legalities. It was an existing business. We can't say no sand. We could, but then we got some issues. But the expanded portion, at least, so we can get our arms around how many trucks are there today and how many, so we could vote on that portion of it. Not saying how the vote would go, but I think that we should do that. So if administration could look at how do we legally address amending the moratorium to talk about the port, either A, no sand, I don't believe that's the right way to go, again, because legalities are at least any further expansion of that particular, just for the 1 year, like if we're talking about everybody else, so we're on a level playing field. So, Judy, do you understand what I was requesting? Yep. Whenever we can legally, so we can actually have a vote on that, and how do we vote on that? And then, Mr. Mayor, you were right, we haven't forgot about the committees. I don't know, maybe what we should do, and I know that staff is looking at that, and Carlos, I know you are, but maybe we just start with a committee. And not just, I know some people said tonight they want a committee, but we could have too cumbersome of a committee, but maybe it starts with a committee, and then that committee decides on how many other committees, because we can't have an all-encompassing committee, there's too much stuff to go on. But maybe just to get it started, a committee made up of what we talked about before, people pro, con, people in the industry, people from the universities, people that, the whole 9 yards, like we always do with the committee. Start that way, get it rolling in that committee, and then from that committee, ideas can come about all the subcommittees.
Hey, Debbie?
First, I want to thank everybody again for coming. Really appreciate taking the time and the input and all the emails and the phone calls. It's, again, all the work and effort that you're doing is much appreciated. I wanted to say, of those of you, we do have a blasting committee about Bison's Quarry in particular. So we are looking at those particular issues. I know I am on it, and Councilmember Thurley and Councilmember Alexander, we are also on that with citizens as well. And we had the emergency council meeting last week for the second reading of the moratorium, and that's why we're now getting input again so we can get moving and get going as to how committees and talking and what we're going to do. I'd like to clarify, I don't recall us ever saying that we're only limiting the study to air. We have a dust mitigation plan, yes, but in the conditional use permit, that was a separate thing that we voted on as well, regulations, so we've got both things going at the same time. We've definitely talked about being all-encompassing. I know I have myself said several times, water, air, we're going to look at traffic, transportation, routes, everything as much as we can. So please remember that we're getting all of that, yes, and anything we miss for sure, but I want to make sure that we get those things clear that we're looking at as well. When the mayor said earlier, I know I've been asking to get the sources down here, so you can go, talk to the sources, like Minnesota Pollution Control, as he mentioned and whatnot. I've been asking for a few months, and I'm told from staff, hopefully within maybe the next month or two, so we kind of have a frame with that. I wish it was sooner, but that's what it is right now. Department of Health also is groundwater. They deal more specifically with that as well, and some other crossovers with the MPCA, and of course MnDOT as we're looking at, and then Department of Natural Resources. So it is a bigger thing, and I also want to make sure to address that. Staff has been collaborating, talking with county, and other entities, so that all of us come together. We've got a lot of information going on here, and what we can do, and to come together in those sources as well, because obviously it's not just affecting the city of Winona as we're looking at this. And And I do have an email from a citizen today that they wanted this entered into the public records, so I'm going to give that to the city clerk as well. And I think that's all I have for right now. Thank you again.
Okay, Al, you got anything?
Not at this time, Mayor, thank you. though.
Okay,
Thank you,
Michelle?
Thanks for the,
Deb? George?
Now, the new washing facility that is proposed down in the East End Industrial Park, that will fall under all the new regulations and guidelines and things that we talked about, correct?
They have submitted, and we've accepted their conditional use permit.
Okay,
Yes.
but they need to abide by all the new
Yes.
rules and everything?
All the new
that's-
rules in that, yes.
Okay,
correct.
fine.
Okay, if there's nothing more from council, thank you all very much for coming, and we'll continue the discussion. You let them go out, and then we'll start on the next.